Well, good afternoon, everyone. It is Sunday afternoon here. Today is June 30th, almost done with June, and we actually have history on our hands here. So, Hurricane Beryl, now a Category 4 hurricane. This is actually the first time in recorded history back since 1851 that we have a Category 4 hurricane anywhere in the Atlantic Ocean before July 1st. So this has been setting up to be very possibly a very active and possibly a record breaking year. And we're the second named storm of the year, not even July 1st, and we're already breaking records. So, right here, what we're looking at here, this is our satellite imagery for Category 4 Hurricane Beryl. And it's just about as perfect or textbook as can be. We can see here's the continent, the South American continent here. Here is our islands out here that border the Caribbean, our Leeward Islands down here. Here's Puerto Rico. And we can see our storm just continuing to spin, very visible open eye with some mesovortices circulating in there. We've got some nice outflow channels here, just kind of that spiral banding here. Just an incredible storm to witness. This is something that you typically see in maybe August or September. And again, today is June 30th. So pretty staggering. Again, earliest time we've ever seen a Category 4 hurricane here on a calendar basis. Obviously, we've seen storms this strong in this area of the world before, just typically 2, 3 months later in the year. So that's what makes this so special and or alarming. So we're likely to see in the next 30 hours impacts here somewhere in the islands, possibly Grenada, for example. So definitely these interests. I've already seen maps of boats leaving the area trying to get south and shelter from the approaching hurricane, and then likely going to move into the Caribbean over the next couple days. So let's look at the latest outlook from the National Hurricane Center here. And so I'll highlight right now, this is as of our 2 p.m. Eastern, we have 130-mile-per-hour sustained winds. So that means Hurricane Beryl has all the time 130-mile-an-hour winds, and then gusts far exceeding that. So that goes to show just how violent of a storm this is. Currently moving west at about 21 miles per hour. Again, the center is over here. We've got our islands here with hurricane watches and warnings already present here. And so definitely going to be feeling those impacts over the next probably 18 hours or so in those islands. And then still in this major hurricane status, that'd be Category 3 or above, over the next several days into the Caribbean, possibly making landfall in Jamaica, maybe just south of there. And then over the back half of the week moving towards somewhere either Central America or very possibly the Yucatan Peninsula. Past that, too early to tell. I am going to break that down a little bit and show what some of the models are showing, and it is a little bit of an alarming trend if you're here along the Texas Gulf Coast. So again, this is our latest update here as of 2 p.m. Eastern time, and again over the next 18 to 24 hours, going to be seeing impacts here in the islands. So definitely bears watching. Let's take a little bit of a different look here. I wanted to go and look at some of the models and what they're showing for Beryl currently. So, what I wanted to show here is this is first an example of all of the plots of the different models right now, and kind of combined onto a single map. And where do they show Hurricane Beryl? And what we can see is that over the next 3 to 4 days, really there's a lot of consistency here. We know exactly where Beryl is going to go, possibly Jamaica, maybe south of there, really across the central Caribbean. Not much of a question there. Now, we still have relatively good agreement, but definitely starts to diverge once we get into next weekend here, likely into the Gulf of Mexico. Now, to what extent we see interaction with the Yucatan and how far south we see Beryl go is going to have an impact on if the Texas coast could potentially be under threat for landfall. Now, what we can see here is if we go to a couple of these others here, these are more specific models. So this is the GFS or the GFS model. So this looks at one model, but lots of its individual component models grouped together. And so what we can see is that each one of these different lines is a separate individual model output. And then our dark black line here, that is kind of that mean or average result. And so again, what we can see is here relative consistency up until about that 72-hour mark. Past there, we start to see some divergence, some take Beryl into Central America. Many have some sort of an impact here in the Yucatan, and a few do take this northern path, kind of going right through, threading the needle between Cuba and the Yucatan and entering the Gulf. What we can also see here is that there are many that still take Beryl over the Yucatan into the Gulf of Mexico with some sort of a Mexico landfall here after the Yucatan. Now, there's also a collection of models here that have anywhere from the Louisiana coast almost pure into southeast Louisiana, all the way along Texas as well. And what we can see is that, again, as far out as this model goes, our average or mean, once we get to the Yucatan, we do start to see a pretty northward bend to our model outputs. And so that is showing that definitely there is a very real threat that there could be a potential Texas landfall. Again, possibly Louisiana. I think that's probably unlikely, but Texas definitely this time next week we may have a situation on our hands. So this is looking at that GEFS ensemble model. And then what we can see here is that this is another collection of models. And again, that average solution does take it into very possibly a Texas landfall sometime about a week from now. So again, this is just something that bears watching. It's definitely interesting. The other thing that is as of note here this afternoon is if we look at the H-Worth hurricane model and we look at the 12Z run, so the most recent run, and we look at what it shows as a result here over time, that I thought was extremely interesting. Not only does it have a direct impact on Jamaica, direct landfall here is still a very strong hurricane over Jamaica. This would be about late morning, midday on Wednesday. But then also, what this model run is showing is that our center of Beryl almost threads the needle between Cuba and the Yucatan. So it's not going to have a landfall. It's not going to have the risk of being shredded by the land. And it actually emerges on the other side into the Gulf of Mexico as a very strong hurricane, setting its sights somewhere to the northwest towards Texas. Again, this is just one model run. Nothing that we need to set in stone. Again, this would be afternoon on Friday, but does bear watching. Again, this model output did show almost that worst case scenario for the Texas or US Gulf Coast. So definitely bears watching here as we move forward in time. Very, very serious storm. Something that we definitely don't want to let our guard down on. Just an absolute unit of a storm, very clear eye, definitely going to have major impacts here across the island. So, hope this update was helpful. Again, historic Category 4 hurricane here before July 1st. Never seen that before in recorded history. And definitely over the next week, going to be a big headline grabber with the impacts to land that are expected. So, hope everybody has a good rest of your Sunday and good completion of your weekend. And I'll see you back for the next video.